U.S. consumers aren't feeling as upbeat as they were earlier this year. Consumer confidence fell for the third straight month. The 70.4 reading in November is the lowest since April, and the Conference Board is a private company that puts this survey together every single month. It's economists that say that consumers believe the job market has gotten stronger, but they aren't so sure about the overall state of the economy. And that could be bad news for retailers as we head into the holiday season. And for more on the latest consumer confidence report, I spoke to Gad Levanon. He's the Director of Macroeconomics Research at the Conference Board.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing after the large decline in October as a result of the shutdown. We thought it will bounce back a little, but it actually kept going down a little further. I think consumers are still feeling uncertain. Wage growth is barely picking up, and we know that consumer spending and in general demand in the economy is quite weak. So this was not a good development. It's not terrible, but it was a little disappointing.
Now, I have to point out something that might be controversial. I see these numbers on consumer confidence that come out all the time. They're better than expected, worse than expected, and what happens is the shopping season, when it begins, the spending doesn't seem to correlate with the consumer confidence, and I know it's supposed to be a leading indicator, but why does it feel like it doesn't match to what consumers actually do?
Well, it actually over the business cycle, it actually behaves like you'd expect. It goes down before recessions and goes up after recessions, and it's typically the case. Now, consumer spending is a very volatile indicator. It is impacted by many things, but I think the consumer confidence does capture the business conditions and the employment conditions, which that's what we ask actually in the consumer confidence index. And now I think what it is telling us is that as we enter the shopping season, November, December, it's actually not, the consumer is not in a great mood for spending much. So that is, especially for businesses where November and December are a huge part of their annual revenues, that's not great news.
I'm going to read you a quote from the report here. Looking 6 months ahead, consumers expressed greater concern about future job and earnings prospect. What's causing that?
Well, I think when they see that what's happening with the government, what's happening with demand in general, they are a little concerned about future job demand. But I think one of the interesting things, if you mention jobs, is that from all the 5 questions, the only one that did not deteriorate in the past 2 months is the questions about current employment conditions. And I think that is because despite the overall very disappointing economic recovery that we're having now, jobs do get easier to find. The unemployment rate is declining quite rapidly, and people who are looking for jobs have an easier time finding them. It's still far from normal. It's still, the unemployment rate is still high, but it is, if you look at the past 3 years, it is much easier to find jobs right now than 3 years ago.
There's no question the economy is much better than it was 3 years ago, or better than 2 years ago, or for that matter, better than the beginning of the year. And I want to correlate that to how the consumer feels and how the consumer behaves. And we're trying to predict perhaps how the Christmas or holiday season might be here in the United States. Because the report, I know it's down, but it's still significantly up where it was a couple of years ago. Can we say that the holiday shopping season should be fairly strong as some predict, or are we wrong about that?
Well, in last months, we actually have, like we do every year, we ask questions specifically about the holiday season. And more people are saying that they are going to spend less this year than they did last year. However, they always say that, and then they go out and shop, and they spend as much, if not more. But overall, I don't think, at least from the consumer confidence perspective, I don't think we're headed towards a great holiday season. I don't think it's going to be bad, but the indications are that it's not going to be particularly strong.
That was Gad Levanon, Director of Macroeconomic Research for the Conference Board.